No, but we're in this series as a church called Road Trip. So you guys have had 3 weeks of this, and we are jumping in to the final week of Road Trip. And it's on this idea, this topic of friends. And we're going to get into it, but before we do, when it comes to road tripping, how many have ever been on a road trip? Come on. And I'm not talking like to Disney. That doesn't count. It has to be longer than 3 hours. Like, I'm talking whether it's Georgia, whether it's Chicago, Midwest area. Maybe you've driven all the way to California. I've done it 4 times. 2 times there. 2 times back. So 4 total. It's a lot. But with road trips, how many know road trips expose everything about a person? You know what I mean? Like you're with people and you're in the car and you have this, like, we're gonna leave at 6 a.m. So everybody have your teeth brushed, have food, be ready to go use the restroom, and you get in the car, and then as soon as you pull out the driveway, can we grab breakfast? What? We agreed that you know what I mean? Like, why are you hungry already? Or there's that person that has to have control of the music. Oh, I'm tired of your country tracks. It's driving me crazy. Or maybe there's that person, this one is fun. I call them the 3-minute bladder people. How? Every single time we pull over for you to use the restroom, it takes 3 minutes for you to need to use it again. Like, you're not even drinking water. How does that happen? That doesn't even make sense with physics. But road trips expose people. They reveal everything about a person. And I think about one of my favorite road trips that I ever took. I grew up with my friend. His name was Rocky. Real name. It's actually kind of cool. I know. Everyone's like, that was his nickname, right? No, real name. And we were the best friends anyone could have, right? And when we graduated high school, he got an internship in college up in Illinois. And so I knew that he was moving, and he asked me to help him move. And so we were moving him from Florida to Illinois. And we had a couple months of a heads up to know that we were going to be doing this. And so we were anticipating it. We were looking forward to it. And we actually titled this road trip. Because we're 2 bros on a road trip, we called it the Broad Trip. Come on. That's pretty good, right? The broad. You're not, bro and ro. You see what you can have that. If you're bro in here and you're going on a road trip with your bro, you can have it. Broad trip. It's a gift from me to you. But on this broad trip, we had planned many different stops. And the first stop that we planned was a stop in Atlanta. That's where we were going to make the first day. Our goal was to get there. And so we had a hotel booked, and we went up there. And we were stopping along the way, gas stations, and getting lunch and getting dinner. And after dinner, we were on our final stretch. And I get in the passenger seat, my friend Rocky gets in the driver's seat. And we both pull up our phones, and we pull out our maps, and we put in the address to the hotel. And Rocky says, "Hey, bro, just another 4.5 hours. You cool? I'll just take the last stretch." And I said, yours says 4.5 hours. Mine says 3 hours. He's like, no, 4. I'm like, no, 3. The difference was we were using different maps. He, and this was 10 years ago, was using Apple Maps. And if you know Apple Maps 10 years ago, Apple Maps was not it. Apple Maps took you places you weren't even trying to go. Apple Maps would make a U-turn 3 times. It's like, why are we doing this? Apple Maps, you can put in Steak and Shake, and it'll take you to McDonald's. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know. There was just something up with it. I never used it. And I was using the right maps. Google Maps. And you think that's a small difference, but that small difference turned into a big argument. And I don't know why, but I told him, hey, bro, just download Google Maps. It's better. 3 hours, 4.5. He said, no. All maps are the same thing. They use the same GPSs. We're going to get there in 4.5 hours, whether we follow yours or mine. I'm like, well, mine says 3. He's like, no, it's the same thing. I said, well, yours is saying to go straight. Mine is saying to get off on this exit. So I don't think they're the same thing. And so that argument blew up in the car, and we spent the next 5.5 to 6 hours in silence. Why was it 5.5 to 6 hours? We followed Apple Maps. The worst part was when we got there, it was close to midnight, and we're going to this hotel that shares a parking lot, and so all of the spots were full. And we hadn't said anything for a long time to each other. It was like the tension was, you could cut it with a knife. And the first thing I say is, well, if we just use Apple Maps, maybe we'd have a spot, which didn't help anything. But we were both heated, and so we get in there, we drop our bags off, and we're in this hotel. It's a really nice one in Atlanta. And he's like, hey, there's a pool, there's a sauna. Have you ever been to the sauna? And I'm like, I'm 19, I don't really sauna yet. Like, I don't know about all these health things. I just eat chicken nuggets and french fries, and I'm good. He's like, no, it's good for you. I'm like, okay, cool. So we get in the sauna, and we're still heated. But because the parking lot was full, we had to park like 3 or 4 blocks down the road. And he looks at me and he goes, how about this? What if we do something fun? What if we see who can stay in the sauna the longest, and whoever gets out first has to get up early in the morning and go get the bags in the car and pick the other one up? And I was like, so because we followed Apple Maps, I might have to go get the bags. Anyways, I'm competitive. I said, yeah, let's do it. And we found out that we are both very stubborn because 60 minutes later, we're still in the sauna. I'm drenched in sweat. I'm starting to like fade in and out, you know, where you got like the squiggles in your eyes and you're like, what's going on? And he asked me, he's like, how much longer you got, bro? I'm like, all day. I got all day. I could sleep in here. And he got out and I won. And that road trip revealed some things about us. It revealed that we were both very stubborn people. We were both very prideful people. Road trips reveal things about you. They expose everything. And who you are on a road trip with matters. And the funny thing about road trips, right, is the destination matters, but who you're going with matters just as much as where you're going, right? You could be road tripping to the best place you could ever imagine, Disney World. Maybe that's not the best place for you. It's not the best place for me. It's for my kids. Maybe you're road tripping to the Keys, but you got the wrong company. And so the wrong people in the car can make that destination and that trip feel miserable because you have the wrong people going the right direction. But in the same light, the right people going to a miserable destination. I'm talking like if you had a road trip to Cleveland, you know what I mean? Like, why are you going to Cleveland? Some of y'all are laughing, some of y'all are offended. You're like, I'm from Cleveland. You moved too. You're down here. But even if your road trip is somewhere miserable, with the right people can be the best time of your life. Why? Because who's in the car matters. And so we're talking about this idea of road tripping and with friends. So the title of today and this question I want to ask you is, who you tripping with? Who you tripping with? Say that. Turn to your neighbor and say, who you tripping with? Now turn to the other person, the one that you didn't turn to. Be like, I ain't tripping with you. No, I'm just kidding. They're your second option, clearly, you know. Who you tripping with? Because who's in the car matters. Who you surround yourself with matters. And that's not just true about road trips. It's also true about life. Most of us spend most of our time thinking about where we're going, thinking about what's next, thinking about the goals, thinking about our careers, thinking about a job promotion, the next chapter, but we spend almost zero time thinking about who we're going with. And if we're honest with ourselves, if we can look at our lives and think back in your life to some of the times where you've had some of the most success or some of the most fun, you could probably trace it back to who was in your circle, who was in the car. But in the same way, thinking back to some of the times where life was the hardest, thinking back to some of the times where there were maybe some failures or some mistakes or some decisions that you made that weren't so wise, you could probably trace it back to who was in the car. Odds are most of us, if not all of us in this room, have had friends in our life. We've had friends who've maybe encouraged you. We've had friends who maybe have sharpened you. We've had friends who've maybe pointed you and pulled you towards Jesus. But we've probably also had friends who have discouraged us. Friends who have influenced us in ways that they shouldn't. Friends that maybe have caused us to drift a little bit further away from Jesus. And all of this is important because who you surround yourself with matters. Who are you tripping with? Maybe you're here and you say, I got the right friends, and I know it. Maybe you're here and you say, I got the wrong friends. Maybe you're here and you say, I got no friends. What I know to be true in any of these circumstances is that nobody drifts into God's purpose alone. How do I know that? Because the Bible tells us this. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, it says this. It says, two, how many? Y'all are almost awake. We're getting there. It says, two, how many? Two. Are better than? One. Two are better than one. Because they have good return for their labor, and if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls down and has no one to help them up. Two is better than one. Notice that beginning, it says two is better. It doesn't say two is more fun than one, or two is going to help you have a better successful job than one, or two is more convenient. It says, no, two is better than one. In other words, the right people in your life don't just sit in your car, they help you move forward, because real friends isn't just about having fun or having a good time or laughing together. It's about helping you become who God has called you to be. Two is better than one. And so what does this look like? Real friends is what we're looking at today. Is what does it look like to be a real friend, and what does it look like to have a real friend? Real friends pull you forward. That verse says two is better than one. Two are better than one. And I want to sit here for a second and pause because that's the writer of Ecclesiastes. He's not saying that just one is bad, right? If you find yourself in a season where you're doing life a little bit more solo right now, he's not saying that's a bad thing, but what he is saying is that two is better. One's not bad, two is better, right? Why? Because life gets heavy. Relationships get heavy. Marriage gets heavy. Parenting, I promise, gets heavy. Finances gets heavy. Paying rent gets heavy. Finding a car that'll turn on gets heavy. I promise again. The dream that God's put inside of you gets heavy. And we're not called to carry these burdens alone. We're called to carry them together. But here's the tension that most of us wrestle with is when we're choosing our friends, when we're picking our friends, most of us choose our friendships because of the chemistry we have or the proximity that we're in. In other words, if I work with them or if I live in the same neighborhood as them, it's a sign. We got to be friends, right? Or maybe we like the same sports team. Go Bucks. Shout out to the Bears, actually. I'm a Bears fan. Hey, we're friends. No, see, like that. We like the same things, so we got to be friends. Or we laugh at the same things, so it just makes sense. And that's chemistry, and chemistry matters. Don't get me wrong. You should enjoy the people you're around. But the question that God isn't asking us is, do you enjoy the same things? The question is, are we moving towards Jesus? And too often we find ourselves, can I be honest, with friends that celebrate our excuses. They don't push us to be the best that we can be. They don't encourage us to grow. What do I mean by that? It's like this. Have you ever had a job where you had a problem with a coworker? It's like if you were to have a job and have a problem with a coworker and you tell your friend about it, but the thing is, it's not just this job. The last 7 jobs that you've had, you told your friends you've had a problem with a coworker. And that friend, what do? They say, oh yeah, that coworker is the worst. And they celebrate your excuses. And so you're like, yeah, they're the worst. They encourage you. And you're telling me that in all 7 jobs, the problem was somebody else? Or maybe you tell your friend about the argument that you had with your spouse, but the thing is they only get to hear your side. Or you got an issue with your boss, and the first thing out of the mouth is, he is the worst. Or you're telling your buddy about this decision you made that you know wasn't wise, but they got to do what you got to do, bro. And they're celebrating our excuses and they're encouraging our comfort because they're not honest enough to help us actually grow. We need some people in our life that are going to be honest with us even though we don't want it because it's what we need. Proverbs tells us that faithful are the wounds of a friend. Can I tell you, nobody wants wounds, but sometimes we need them. I got 4 kids. My kids, they learn a lot of lessons because of the scrapes that end up on their knee. They learn a lot of lessons because of the burns that end up on their hands. And in the same way, a real friend tells you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear. I think about when I was in 11th grade, I was starting to kind of, I would say I was an adult. I was only 17, but that's what 17-year-olds think. And I was sitting in the car with my dad, and my dad was awesome growing up. He would encourage me all the time. He would tell me how cool, how awesome, how great I was, even if it wasn't true. It's just what he did. And I remember sitting in the car telling him about my day, and I loved sports, and I was okay at sports, good at them sometimes, and I was telling him, no doubt, about how awesome I was on the basketball court or on the football field. I just would, Dad, 7 touchdowns today. You wouldn't believe it. And I'll never forget, this is a big moment in my life. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he goes, man, if I was in high school, I would never hang out with you. And it caught me so off guard because I'm like, you're my dad. You can't say mean things to me. You're supposed to tell me how awesome I am. He goes, no, I don't think I'd like you. He said, because the only thing you ever talk about is you. You don't talk about anybody else. You don't ask anybody else any questions about them. It's all about how good you are. And the rest of the road trip, or wherever we're going, super quiet because I just kept thinking, playing back the conversations I've had, playing back the conversations I had with him, playing back the conversations I've had with my friends, and I realized I do. I make a lot of things about me, and it's a conversation, can I be honest, that I did not want to hear my dad say that he wouldn't like me. Maybe he could have said it nicer, I don't know. He encourages me a ton still today, and he's still my best friend, but in that moment, that's what I needed to hear. And since then, I've still struggled. I continue to struggle with that, and I sometimes overcompensate. I'm like, no, it's all about you guys. But because of that moment, I've learned to try to ask people questions, try to make it more about them, because in the moment, it was wounds from a friend that were faithful. And in that context, it was wounds from my father who were faithful. And the Proverbs continues to go on to tell us, if we walk with the wise, then we're going to become wise, because a companion of fools suffers harm. And I say that because the reality is we're always either moving towards wisdom or away from it. And the people that are in your circle, the people that you're road tripping with, matter more and influence that more than we could ever even care to admit. Who you surround yourself with matters. Real friends pull you forward. But watch what Ecclesiastes 4:10 says, is if either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Real friends also pick you up. A real friend picks you up. Notice it doesn't say if just you fall down, though. It says if either of you fall down. Because being a real friend is also being there to pick up. And can I tell you, it says if either of you falls down, falling, it's not unusual. Falling is almost expected in life. Falling happens. Why? Because discouragement comes. Temptation shows up. Failure happens. Losses happen. Seasons where you feel like you're just carrying the weight of the world and you don't know if you can carry it anymore happens. And in those moments, we need some real friends who can pick us up. It's kind of like we're in this topic or this theme of road tripping. If you could just imagine for a second, you're on this road trip. If you want to close your eyes, this might help. You don't have to. It helps me because I get distracted. I got ADHD. Like right now, I'm off on a trail. But if you're on a road trip and you got like your 5 closest friends with you, and you're on this back road, and it's 11 p.m., so it's super dark, and there's no lights around, you guys pull over to like take a picture or whatever, and you turn the car off, and then you get back in the car, and you go to turn it back on, and you hear that, you know what I'm talking about? I don't know how to do that sound very well. I'm not like a sound effects artist, but the car doesn't start. The battery is dead. But you got your 5 closest friends, so you know what happens, right? You got 2 people that are gonna walk up the road and try to find the nearest gas station, try to find somebody. Somebody hops on the phone to try to get a hold of somebody that might be near. You're out there, you got the hood open and you're looking at the battery, and you got your friend who's got the flashlight, and your final friend, he's on YouTube trying to figure out how to jump a car, because we all know we've all jumped cars, but there's a red and there's a black, and if we put them on the wrong ones, we're just not sure. This could be it. So we gotta YouTube it. Even if I'm like 90% sure I know where the red goes and the black goes, I'm still gonna make sure I YouTube it, right? It's okay. That moment, a scary moment, car's dead, but you got people around. Now, if you would, imagine you're on the same road trip, on the same road, same time, but you're alone and the car doesn't turn on. So you find yourself with the same problem, same inconvenience, but everything changes depending on who's in the car with you. That's not just a road trip thing, that's a life thing. Everything changes depending on who's in life with you, who's in your circle. I'll tell you what, dead car alone, scary. I might be having fun with a dead car with 5 friends around. But the problem is, most of us, when we're choosing our friends, we want friends that are there for the highlights. Or we want friends that are gonna be able to help us make money or do business or give us a promotion or celebrate the victories or the trophies. And those moments matter. But God also gives us friends for the hard times too. And the real true test of a friendship is not who shows up when you're winning. Who shows up when the battery is dead? Who shows up when life is falling apart? Who shows up when you got a family member that's in the hospital and you don't know where else to look to for a word of encouragement? Who shows up when you walk in on Sunday morning and you got this stuff going on? That's the real test of a true friend, right? But here's the deal. Odds are some people walked in here this morning and you have some stuff going on. Maybe you got a dead battery you haven't told anybody about. Maybe you're holding on to something. Maybe the enemy's got his chains wrapped around your life. But you walked in through the doors this morning with a smile on your face, shook 3 to 4 people's hands, turned to your neighbor and said, "Who are you tripping with?" And when somebody asks you how you're doing, you said, "I'm good, I'm great," because God is good. And all the time. And that's true. But you got some stuff going on and God put people around you and you just haven't taken a step to share it with somebody, because a real friend picks you up, but you got to allow them to pick you up. Come on, yeah, you can make some noise. We all want to be strong, right? We all want to be the best that we can be, and the world tells you got to just grit it out. But the strongest people are not the ones who never failed. The strongest people are actually the ones who are humble enough to be picked up, to say, I got a dead battery and I need a little bit of help. And I need a little bit of community. I need some friends around because it's tough. Real friends pull you forward. Real friends pick you up. But Jesus doesn't let that standard of what friendship looks like stay there. He takes the bar and he raises it. In John chapter 15, he says this, "My command is this, to love each other as I have loved you. Because greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know his master's business, and instead I have called you friends. For everything that I've learned from my Father, I've made known to you." Real friends stay close. They stay close. Staying close usually takes a little bit of intentionality. Takes a little bit of grit, a little bit of effort. And I want you to feel the weight of what Jesus is saying in John chapter 15, because he's talking to his disciples in this moment. And in their culture, the entire culture was built on this hierarchy system. I'm here, you're there, nothing blurs those lines. I'm master, you're a servant, so stay in your place, know your place. I don't share my business, we're not friends. But Jesus changes all of that right here. He's looking at his 12 disciples, a bunch of fishermen, a bunch of tax collectors, a bunch of people who, honestly, they just keep messing up. And he says, "Hey, I don't call you servant. I call you friend." And he's modeling something here. He's modeling what friendship really looks like, because he walked with them. He served them. He wept with them. He corrected them. He stayed with them even when they failed. And this is the standard of friendship that Jesus is setting for you and I today. When we've got friends, when we are friends, we've got to walk with them. We've got to weep with them. We've got to celebrate with them. And when they mess up, we stay with them, because we stay close. But the issue again is that proximity thing. the culture we live in isn't usually make friends intentionally, it's where you at. Because usually who you're around becomes who your friends are. And proximity can help with that, but proximity is not enough. I know this because proximity without intentionality just means you might be in the same place. You're not actually with each other. Because friendship is not built through proximity, it's built through intentionality. And that's a challenge. It's tough. Because intentionality usually costs something. It costs us energy. It costs us time. Sometimes it costs us money. It costs us emotional bandwidth. And frankly, sometimes we're just tired. Sometimes we're always tired. But the friendships that carry you through the hard times and the friendships that celebrate with you in the good times usually happen because somebody decided to be intentional about building the relationship. And can I be real? You might have friends that are pulling you forward. You might have friends that are picking you up. You might even have friends that are staying close, but none of those things matter if it's not for this one thing. Real friends, one that we all need in our life, point you to Jesus. If they're not doing that, then they ain't the right friends for you. Can I tell you right now? You need some friends that are gonna point you to Jesus. The greatest thing a friend can do for you in your life might not be what they can get for you or help you with. It's just the fact that they point you to Jesus. And I think about this story as we're in this road trip and it's friends and it's about this. There's this story in Mark chapter 2 where where Jesus shows up to this town in Capernaum and he goes into this building and everybody hears that Jesus is coming. And at that time, everybody would have already heard about Jesus and the miracle worker that he is and how he's the Messiah. And so everybody wanted to see Jesus. And so when he shows up, he goes into this building in this house and it gets packed. Wall to wall people. They just want to see Jesus. They want to hear from him. They want to hear what he has to say. And so you can't even get through it. There's no way of like wiggling in. But there's this guy in Capernaum and he's paralyzed. And I can only imagine what it must have been like for him to know Jesus is right in that room. And I want him to heal me, but I can't even move. I can't get to him. I can't wiggle through it. And the cool thing about this guy is he made some good choices because he had some good friends. He had 4 friends with him. And they weren't about to let his challenge get in the way of his miracle. And so they were trying to get him to Jesus, and they're probably trying to wiggle through a bunch of people in the crowd, and they couldn't figure out how to get him there. And so they did something crazy. They picked their friend up. They climbed up onto the building, and they started to dig. I don't know how long they had to dig. I can't imagine it was quick, but they probably spent hours digging a hole through this roof, and they lowered their friend down. They dug a hole through the roof. I think we take that for granted when we read it. Can you imagine right now, this just busts open and it's like, what in the world? Radical faith. But they dig a hole in the roof and they lay their friend down in front of Jesus, and it says that Jesus healed the man because he saw their faith. Not his faith, not the man's faith, not the paralyzed guy's faith. No, the friends that he had enough faith so that he received his miracle that day. Do you have a friend that's willing to dig a hole through the roof to point you to Jesus? Are you the kind of friend willing to dig a hole through the roof? And I want to be the kind of friend that digs holes through the roof so that my friends can get in front of Jesus. That's the best thing a friend can do. It's not just an encouraging word or telling you how awesome you are. The best thing a friend can do is point you to Jesus, to pray with you, to read their word with you, to help you stay accountable, to start a Bible plan, to continually say, hey, the crowd is there, but I'm not gonna let the crowd cause you to miss Jesus. I'm gonna dig a hole through the roof. Because greater love has no one than this, but to lay down one's life for one's friend. And Jesus, he says this, but he doesn't just say it. Jesus actually lives it. Right? When we were broken, when we were lost, God sent his son down die on the cross and live the life that we couldn't live, die the death that paid for our sins. And when he died, he rose 3 days later so that we might have new life in him. We don't deserve that, but he did that. And can I tell you, that same Jesus is in you today. He's here today. If you've accepted him in your life, he is the friend that you need. I remember early when Maddie and I got married, about a year in, we had our son Izzy. And Izzy, when he was 8 weeks old, nobody tells you like all these things about parenting. Like kids get sick and there's challenges that come. But Izzy at 8 weeks old, we're brand new parents, 21 years old, have no idea what we're doing. We're 3 hours away from any family members. He just starts getting like these fevers, you know, like the 104-degree fevers. And you're like, I don't know, is that normal for a baby? And you call them, they're like, absolutely not, we need to rush him in. And so we took him to the emergency room. And they're like, hey, he has this thing called RSV. And usually it's not a big deal, but when they're 8 weeks old, we have no idea how this can go. And I remember they kept us in the emergency room, and our 8-week-old baby, can you show that picture one more time if you can? Our 8-week-old baby, they had to put an eye. I'm scared of needles, and they put a needle right up in his arm. And I will never forget the feeling of sitting there looking at our 8-week-old newborn baby, new parents, not knowing what tomorrow is gonna hold, with this spirit of just anxiousness, the spirit of what if. And can I tell you, in that doctor's room, we had friends, we had family come and see him and spend time with him because we were there for a couple days. But the only thing that brought the comfort we needed was the friend we had in Jesus. Every time we would just open our mouths to pray, there's this spirit of comfort. We didn't know what was gonna happen. We didn't know what the solution or the outcome was gonna be in Izzy's life. But in that moment, I knew Jesus was the friend that I needed. I knew that the best friend you're ever gonna have is not the one that's sitting next to you. The best friend you're ever gonna have is the Savior who died for you. The same Savior who in the hospital room comforted me and my wife in a situation where there should be no comfort is the same Savior that died for you. That whatever situation you might find yourself in life, you know it's gonna be okay because you know the one who holds the situation. You might have the right friends, you might have the wrong friends. You might have came in today grateful for the friendships you have. And if you do, can I encourage you, send them a text, let them know you're grateful for them. Don't just assume that they already know. You might have came in realizing you've been trying to do life alone and it's getting hard, it's getting heavy, and you're not supposed to hold that weight. Nobody is. Or maybe you came in and you thought, you know what, man, my friends that I have, they're fun, but they're not pointing me the right direction. I need to make some new friends. Wherever you find yourself, before any of that conversation happens, before God puts the right people around you, he wants a relationship with you. Because the greatest road trip that you're ever gonna take starts with the moment that you surrender everything to Jesus. And here's the best part about road tripping with Jesus. You never have to road trip alone again. Jesus doesn't get out the car when things get hard. Jesus doesn't argue with you about Apple Maps and Google Maps. He just gets you there. He is the way.